If you've played Motorfest for more than 10 minutes, you've probably figured out that all of the events and races in game are sorted into playlists, and these playlists cover just about every type of vehicle in the game, from monster trucks to airplanes to everything in between, and even some of the unlisted subclasses like lowriders and race bikes. But there's one class that is not covered in any playlist, and that is Demolition Derby. Demolition Derby class is actually only used in Demo Royale mode. Now you may say, hey, that makes sense, it has its own online game mode. But given the history of the series itself and the way Demolition Derby was used in the Crew 2, that doesn't really make much sense. And also, every other class in game can be found in Grand Race. So why, then, should one class be left completely out of every playlist and every race in the game? Well, there's quite a bit of evidence that wasn't originally supposed to be the case. In fact, there's evidence for enough locations and events to fill an entire 8-race Demolition Derby playlist, and we might know what that playlist reward card would be. Without any further delay, I'm going to get right into some of this evidence for this playlist. And we'll start with the unused and underutilized tracks where some of these Demolition Derby races may have taken place. Our evidence begins at the Kualoa racetrack, which is a dirt oval with a kind of dent in the top of it. Now this racetrack is only used once, and it's used in the stock around the clock race in the vintage playlist. It's a little bit odd that they would make an entire racetrack that is only ever used once. On top of that, Demolition Derby cars generally race at ovals, figure eights, and in pits. For this to not be used at all for anything else is a little suspicious, and it's what initially set me off to thinking there might have been more to do with this. On top of this, the Demolition Derby cars, their speed and power works really well with this track. You'll be able to see that here a little bit. But not only that, this is not the only unused oval in the game. There's actually an entire another oval along with the figure 8 track that goes entirely unused despite being lit and marked on the map, and we'll go to that next. Moving over to the Black Beach area, you can see we have this oval track with a figure 8 track going through it. It's marked as this on the map. You can see the separate figure 8 and oval. This track is not used in any playlist, although other playlist races take place right next to it, such as motocross and monster trucks. This track lights up at night. You can see some of the lights there, and it's the perfect size for the Demolition Derby cars to drive in. It's perfect for their speed and power. It's very odd that this is a figure 8 and an oval, and that's perfect for derby cars, but it's never used. We're now up to 3 different race events that could possibly go into a derby playlist. But there's actually even more to this, because if you come over here to the Hanamau racetrack area, you'll see that there's kind of this mixed surface rallycross sort of track. It follows, there's multiple paths it can take, and it has things like grandstands and barriers and multiple entrances to the main racetrack. Initially, looking at this, I thought these were some sort of service road for the racetrack. But if you follow it, it's actually different curves, bridges, barriers, there's grandstands. It's very clearly some sort of mainly off-road mixed surface track. And while that actually could be used in the future in some sort of rally or rallycross playlist, it could just as much be used in a Demolition Derby playlist. In fact, both the first Flatout game and Wreckfest use rallycross style tracks in a Demolition Derby game, so that's not at all unheard of. While this multi-surface track isn't 100% guaranteed to be specifically a derby track, the fact that not only the Crew 2 had multi-surface derby tracks, but other contemporary Demolition Derby games have multi-surface tracks for their derby cars lends a lot of credence to this being used in one of these events if this playlist were to happen. Now we have 4 events, but they're all races. We don't have any arena battles, which is the other side of what Demolition Derby cars do. There's no pushing other cars off of a platform or a building, or, taking each other out in a big mud pit. Except for the fact that there is plenty of it in game. Here's what I'm talking about. If you played the Crew 2's Demolition Derby mode, you'll know that the arena Demolition Derby events in that game were kind of these big built-up arena areas. And while Motorfest could do something like that, as it already does this for the drift events, it spawns a big spiral road or a road floating in the sky that's not normally there, I went on the assumption that the game would use already in-game areas. And there's plenty of them in-game that would make for good Demolition Derby arenas. But we'll start with the most obvious, which is the big Ubisoft symbol in the mud in the middle of the map. Now, this is actually part of the track Mud Hour from the Off-Road playlist. And you only race on part of it in Mud Hour. The rest of the track kind of goes off into the woods and does some other things. But this whole area could also be another racetrack, or it could just be kind of a big mud pit to go after each other in. There's actually an event start gate for Demo Royale right in the middle of it. If you wanted to go a little more extreme, maybe in the vein of older games like Twisted Metal or Destruction Derby Arenas, there's plenty of options. There is the shopping center in Honolulu, and the roof of this is accessible and actually has a bunch of jumps and falls, and you can push each other off the sides of it. This would be great for either a track or a sort of derby arena where if you get shoved off, you're out. There was one of these in the Crew 2 where you tried to shove other cars in the water. This would be a similar thing. If you fall off the building, you're out. Another one is the cargo ship in the harbor west of the city. You can only actually get on this with an airplane, and yet it is detailed, and there's tons of containers and little lanes that cut through where you could sneak around and hit people. You can build up quite a bit of speed there, and there's areas to knock each other off the boat. There's areas to fall off the boat. On top of this all, there's the obvious one, which is the big volcano that's in the middle of the map, or not the middle, but sort of up towards the upper middle of the map. It's iconic. It's all over the intro of the game, the art for the game, and you can see it from all over the map, and yet the creator of it is only used for a photo op and one airplane challenge, as far as I know, which is very strange. You could very easily fit a eight player or 8 driver group of derby cars in here for a playlist event, and there's plenty of room to build up speed, and the derby cars actually get pretty good purchase on this gravel that's up here. There's areas to jump off of, on top of others, and again, you could use the sides as of if you get pushed off, you're out. But you might be saying, okay, well, you've got race events, you've got 4 of them, maybe more if you try these like the rooftop track or the Ubisoft spiral track. You've got arena events, so we have 8 total. That's a playlist, assuming wherever they put our shipping start container at. But what's our reward? And that leads into something very interesting. If you've been around the Crew franchise long enough, you'll know that leaks of upcoming and unreleased content have always been prevalent, and that is true. There are, beyond the leaks, always things that were in, especially in the Crew 2, that were kind of buried in the files and code of the game. One of them being this Peugeot here. Its paint job was in the game from almost when the game came out until they finally released it years later. There are also some unreleased Demolition Derby cars. Unreleased is the wrong word because they are all technically released. The 3 of them were a Charger Demolition Derby car, which became the Charger Demolition Derby car, a GT500 Demolition Derby car, which became the AmeriCar Rally car, and then shown, but never given to us, was an Impala Derby car. Now, this one never came out and was pretty much written off until the last season of the Crew 2 came out. See, IVT accidentally revealed something in this intro movie for Mad Volume 2, and that's that there is an unreleased, functional Impala Demolition Derby car. You can see it here in the video that introduces all of the different Mad events, and you can see it when it slides very quickly right there. You see the Impala, the black and green Impala Derby car. Here is a still picture of it. You can see the Impala badging, you can see the roll cage, the net, the Demolition Derby wheels and tires, and this is not the circuit version, and this is not the Summit version that's about to come out in the Crew 2. Those are different. So here we see this car exists. It's ready to go. It's in this gameplay footage. This isn't a leak. It's in this gameplay footage, just like all the other unused Demolition Derby cars were released to us. This one is out there. It's somewhere, but we just don't have access to it. And that leads me to my final theory on this. At the end of the day, everything here is speculative. I'm just sitting here waffling about unreleased content in a video that 50 people are probably going to watch. However, I do want to put this theory out there. I feel like there was originally supposed to be a Demolition Derby playlist. Not only is there all this evidence, these unused tracks, this car that should have been released along with everything else that came out with it, but it just goes unused, and the fact that Demolition Derby cars have a performance level, yet Demo Royale is balanced. There is very clear evidence that they plan to do something with Demolition Derby and never did. Why? I don't know. My instinct tells me that they decided that Demo Royale was all that was needed and have left this playlist by the wayside or never truly developed it. However, I'd like to think that at some point we will eventually see this playlist. Now, I think, for example, the multi-surface rallycross track, I think that could be utilized in a number of ways. That one isn't concrete with Demolition Derby, but I think we will see that one used at some point. There's way too much detail in it for it to not be used. I can understand them only using the oval track in the woods once. However, again, the track with the figure 8 just makes no sense to just sit and rot like that. I think at the end of the day, between the unreleased Impala and the figure 8 and the oval, they were probably going to do something, and they probably never will, sadly. However, maybe, possibly, in the future, we will see something. We don't know how they plan on expanding the game past the island season that's coming up. We don't know anything. So, could we possibly see this stuff used? Yes. Could we possibly see a Derby playlist that doesn't use any of what I've mentioned? Probably. I'm probably wrong on all of this. However, I hope we at least see some of it utilized. I hope we at least see that cool Impala Derby car come to the game, and maybe we see that figure 8 and oval track used. If you like this, subscribe. This is my second video I've done a voiceover on. If there's some audio hiccups, I apologize. My cat is fighting with my headset this entire video. Thank you for checking this video out. If you liked it, like it. If you want to subscribe, I'm going to try to make more of this. Thank you for watching. Have a good one.